Okay, Shalom Aleichem and welcome back everyone as we are preparing this week, Baruch Hashem, Parshat, Behar-Bechukotai, Shabbat Hazak, as we're ending off Sefer Vayikra this week. Be'ez Hashem, it should come upon us in good health and wealth. Be'ez Hashem, Sefer Bamidbar will start next week. So let's take a look at Parshat Behar-Bechukotai to get some lessons to take with us from this Parshiot as we continue our march to Matan Torah. So obviously every parasha now is getting us ready to accept the Torah. So let's take a look at what we can learn from this week's parasha. We'll start off in Parshat Behar. We're going to go to chapter 25 in Sefer Vayikra, and we're going to go to Pasuk Lamed Hey. And the Pasuk here says as follows: V'chi yamuch achicha. And if your brother becomes poor, he becomes impoverished, he doesn't have, umata yado imach, and his means fall, imach with you, v'hezakta bo, and you should strengthen him, ger v'tosha v'chai imach, and you should and he should live with you. It's very interesting. The pasuk says he becomes poor and he falls imach with you. What does that mean with you? He's falling. You want me to pick him up? And you should strengthen him. So what does it mean he falls with you? How does it understand imach? Then imach, and he should live with you. What's this imach with you? So famously, everybody knows this idea. We spoke about many times, the Mashal from the Ben Ish Chai. But today I would like to bring a different story to show the same idea. And the story goes, you must have heard the story as well. Chaim Maizel. He was a Rav in Lodz, Poland. And back in those days in Eastern Europe, they were freezing cold. Not many people owned heaters. And to have a coat or a blanket was a very hard thing to have. And if you didn't have those stuff, you froze. It was that bad. And as the Rav of the community, he felt that it was his duty to help the poor at least get a blanket, at least get a coat. So he took it upon himself to go to a certain rich man, a wealthy man in town, a wealthy Jew, to ask him for money, and it was a winter night. And Harav Eliyahu Chaim Maizel comes to the door, he knocks on the wealthy man's door, the wealthy man opens the door, and he tells Rav Eliyahu Chaim to walk inside, and Rav Eliyahu Chaim stands at the door, and he says, no, how's your wife, how's the kids, how's the family, what's going on in the world, how's the business, and everything. And the rich man is, the heat's escaping from his house, the cold's coming in, he's freezing, and he's speaking for a few minutes, and he finally says to Rabbi, can I invite you inside? Can we come and talk about this inside? And the rabbi says, oh, you want to know what I came for? I'm coming to collect money to help the people who don't have anything to protect them from the cold. So the rabbi says, talk about it inside. And Rabbi Eliyahu Chaim says, no, I want you to feel what it means that the person is cold. Because what happens, a lot of times we're sitting at home and you hear about something that's going on in the world, someone has a problem, someone has an issue, this happened, that happened, but you're sitting in the comfort. So you can't put it all the way in. That's what the Ben Ish Chai talks about Yom Kippur. Ben Ish Chai says when a person goes through Yom Kippur, he has to know what people who have no food feel like. That's one of the main ideas of Yom Kippur, is to know what someone who doesn't have food feels like. So when it comes to time, someone who says, I'm starving, help me, you help them, because you know what it feels like. This is what it means in the Pasuk, that he falls, he's with you. It means you have to fall with him in the sense that you have to feel where he's coming from. You have to actually feel his pain. You have to actually feel it, because there's no way you can help someone if you don't feel it. If you don't feel it, if someone's in pain, right, and the other guy's not in pain, he can never completely understand what this person is going through. Our job is, when we see someone falling, that we have to somehow get into his shoes and feel it. Because if we do, then we can help him. Then we have a chance of helping him. The pasuk says then, "V'chazakta bo," and you shall strengthen him. Now, obviously, this means you should strengthen. If someone's poor, you want to strengthen him with money and with finances. And the Rambam says the best mode of tzedakah is to provide someone with a job, right? Give him a parnasa, is when he can support himself. And the people, if you have the ability to do that, we do that. But I heard from Rav Nachum Cooper, Zechat Tzadik L'Rocha, The Chazakta boy can also mean to strengthen someone in mitzvot, in ma'asim tovim. If a person is poor in mitzvot and ma'asim tovim, right? We're reading poor as important finances and financial, but you can read it poor in Torah, mitzvot, and ma'asim tovim. Our job is to vechazak the boy. You should strengthen him. If Nachum Cooper would share a story that I believe I shared this week here in the shul, but we'll share it again for the sake of the Parshat shir, that there was a great tzaddik, a rebbe, by the Lubavitcher, Hasidim, who wrote the Tanya. His name is the Baal Tanya, the author of the Tanya. And the Baal Tanya was going around, and he was collecting money to free some Jewish captives. And he comes to a certain city, and he meets with the Gabei Tzedakah, the people in charge of the collecting of Tzedakah. And he tells them, no, who are the Geverim, who are the rich people in this town that I can go and I can collect money for Pidyon Shvuyim to free those captives? And they give him the list. And they say, this, and they point to one man on the list, and they say, this guy is a big Gever, he has a lot of money, but he doesn't give anything out. He doesn't give anything out. He's a very big kamtzah, he's a very big miser, he doesn't give out. If he gives you anything, he gives you a rusted copper coin. And that's it. So the Baal Tanya says, no problem. Thank you for the advice. And he goes to these Gabei Tzedakah, and he goes straight to the man who never gives. And the two people say, Rabbi, we told you not to come here. And he says to them, listen, I'm going in. If you want, you can come in with me, but no questions. So these two people said, okay, we'll go inside. And the Baal Tanya goes inside with these two people. And he goes and he starts talking to this rich man, to this Gever. And he tells them, we're collecting for Pidyon Shvuyim, we're collecting for captives, one of the biggest mitzvahs. And the Rebbe is talking to this rich man for a half hour. For a half hour he's talking to him. And after that half hour, the man says, you know what, I'm ready to donate. He goes into the back room, he comes out with a copper coin, a rusted copper coin, and he gives it to the Rebbe. And the Baal Tanya says, oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. He takes it and puts it away in his pocket and says, should I write you a receipt? The man says, of course, I did a mitzvah. It's a tax deductible. Give me the receipt. So he gives him the receipt. And the Gaboyim, the two other people who came with him, they're ready to choke this guy. This is the Baal Tanya. How could you be so disrespectful? No, they promised not to do anything, not to interfere. They kept quiet. The Baal Tanya starts to walk out. As he reaches the door, the man runs up and says, tell me again, how much you need, how much you're collecting? He says, I'm collecting, let's say, 2,000 rubles. So the man says, you know what, hold on. He goes back into the back room, he comes out, a sack of money, 1,000 rubles. And he tells the Rebbe, take, this is for you. Take it. This is the mitzvah, take it. She says, the Gaboyim are up. Whoa, where did this come from? The guy never gave him more than a rusted copper coin. So the Baal Tanya thanks him, writes out another receipt. And then he continues to walk down the stairs. He's ready, coming out of the house, down the stairs, all the way out. And the man says, stop. How much you need total? He says, I told you 2,000. He says, hold on. He goes back and he brings another bag of 1,000 rubles. And says, Rabbi, now you have enough. And you collected enough for the mitzvah. You have enough to free those captives. And these two people that were with the Baal Tanya they couldn't understand where this is coming from. So they, after this man leaves, the two people tell to the Baal Tanya, how did you do this? What miracle did you make? How did you do this? And the Baal Tanya says, no miracle. You see, this guy has such a big Yetzer Hara. His Yetzer Hara didn't let him do the mitzvah. The Yetzer Hara only let him do a small rusted copper coin. But every time he tried to do the mitzvah with the copper coin, people took it and threw it back at him. They say, you're not going to do a mitzvah with the copper coin. And we know, mitzvah, gorer mitzvah. One mitzvah leads to another, as the Pirkei Avot says. And what happens? They never let him do the mitzvah. They keep throwing it back at him. But now that I let him do the mitzvah, we gave him one, and he took it. I took it from him. He felt that he did the mitzvah. He opened up his heart to give more and to give more. Says Rav Nachum Cooper, "V'echazakta boy." You have to also open up the hearts of our fellow men to do mitzvot ma'asim tovim. How do we do that? You give them, even they're ready just to do a little mitzvah. Take that little mitzvah. Because that little mitzvah would also help create another mitzvah and another mitzvah. Okay, let's move on to our second lesson from this week's Parshat. We're going to move on to an idea that it says towards the end of Parshat Behar. It says, actually the next pasuk over here. The next pasuk says as follows. Middle of the pasuk, Ve'yareta me'elohecha, and you shall fear your God, V'chei achicha imach, and let your brother live with you. Says the Tepuchei Chaim, that you know how you know if a person has Yirat Hashem? If he lets his fellow man live. He's nice to other people. He helps his fellow man. He helps them live. Then you know he has Yirat Shamayim. Because what does it mean to have Yirat Shamayim, Yirat Hashem? To be fearful of Hashem. You know what that means? It's to know that there's someone else in the world. That's not just about me. I can't be all selfish. That there's a God in the world. And the God's doing something. The God's watching. And the Hashem wants me to do something. Then, if you realize there's Hashem, and Hashem wants you to do mitzvot, Hashem wants you to be nice to other people, and you let other people live, and you help them live, this is v'chayimach. This means Yirat Hashem. This means you have Yirat Hashem, says the Tepuchei Chaim. There's a famous story with the Belzer Rebbe. The Belzer Rebbe, people were coming to him and giving him kvittelach, papers to daven for their children not to be enlisted into the army in Russia, I believe it was. And actually, this was... It was in Russia? Okay, so they were coming to him and asking him to make sure that the children don't get into the army. And his wife, the Rebbetzin, put a kvittel for her son, for their son. And when the Rebbe got to the kvittel, to the paper of his son's name, he let out a groan. He let out, ugh. And his wife said, whoa, everybody else, you're davening so nicely. And when it comes to our son, you make sounds. The Rebbe says, no, I'm making sounds because of our son. You see, when our son's name came up, I prayed with more heart and more emotion. And it shouldn't be that way. I should love every Jew. You have to let every Jew live with you. And he felt that was for him, on his level, that was a chisaron, that was something lacking. And a short while later, representatives of another community came to the Rebbe and they told him that our community is terrible, there's so much poor people, there's no help, what should we do, how can we collect, what can we do? And the Belzer Rebbe said to them, I have a story to share with you. The Belzer Rebbe said there was a man who went to medical school. And he was learning for years. Also want to say today, congratulations to 3 of my cousins who graduated today and became doctors. So congratulations to them. But to go back to our story, so the Belzer Rebbe says that the guy went to medical school and he was learning how to be a doctor and everything. And after 4 years of medical school, the dean, the head of this college, would interview every student. The exit interview. To finish school, you have to be able to talk to the dean. He's going to ask you questions. You got to pass it before you can move on and go on to your residencies and everything. So this young man, he studied, he was top of his class. He goes into the dean, and the dean tells him, it's his exit exam, and he tells him, let's say you're in the hospital and comes in a person who's bleeding very badly from a certain spot. What do you do? So he says, he's bleeding. Okay. You take a certain medication, you put it on the cut, you apply pressure. You don't have the medication. What do you do? So he says, there's a different medication you can use. You don't have a different medication. So he says, okay, you'll take the cloth, you hold it down, you try to sterilize it, whatever you can. You don't have gauze, you don't have tape. What do you do now? He says, I have any other cloth, any other material, I'll burn it to sterilize it and I'll put it into place. So the dean says, you don't have that either. What do you do? So he thinks, and he says, listen, if we don't have any medicines, we don't have any supplies, what am I supposed to do? That's it. It's over. And the dean says, you failed. We're not graduating you. You're not getting your medical degree. So He says, well, what was I supposed to say? What was I supposed to do? So says the dean of the school, if you have neither medicine nor a piece of cloth readily available, the doctor, who's a real doctor, improvises. He doesn't give up. If you can't find the piece of cloth, then you take off your suit jacket. You take off your shirt. You take off your pants if you have to. To sit there and do nothing, that's not a way a doctor acts. Obviously, the patient's best interests are not your overriding concern, says the dean. You have no business of becoming a physician. Says the Belzer Rebbe. You know how a community strives and a community succeeds? It's when each person in the community wants to help his fellow man. You let your fellow man live. You are concerned about their success and you want to see them succeed. Then you'll have success. That is true success, Rabotai. That's what it means to be a Yerei Shamayim. And that's how you build a community, says the Belzer Rebbe. Let's move on to our third and final lesson from this week's Parsha. We have two Parshiot this week. Like we mentioned, Behar and Bechukotai. And in both Parshiot, we have two similar psukim. One pasuk says as follows. We're looking at chapter 25, verse 19. V'natana ha'aretz priyah, and the land will give its fruit. V'achaltem lasoa, and you're going to eat it to satisfaction. V'shavtem levetach aleha, and you're going to dwell securely in your land. You'll eat well, and you live securely. And then in Parshat Bechukotai, we have the fifth pasuk in the parsha that says, what does it say? V'achaltem lachmechem lasova. You're going to eat till you're filled. V'shavtem levetach ba'artzechem, and you'll sit securely in your land. What's the connection between eating well and sitting securely? That's the brachot the Torah tells us. Hashem says, I'll give you plenty of food, you'll be full, and you'll be securely in your borders. Twice in each parasha it says this. Why does it say it this way? So I saw from Rav Mordechai Kamenetsky Shlita. He says as follows. He says a story to explain it. Beautiful story. There was a man named Yankel. Yankel was a vagabond. This was a guy, every Friday, he would go collect a couple of dollars, take a nice clean haircut, get himself a nice shave, nice haircut, and he had one suit that he once bought, and it's nice, finely pressed, and he would put it on looking well-groomed. He would walk into the shul Friday night. In the olden days, a person didn't have a place. On Friday after night, they would, he would go with someone from the shul. And he would make himself look very nice, like a businessman. So the wealthy people would take him to his house, and then he would eat really well. And then the rest of the week, he'll figure out his life. And this was Yankel. Every week he did this. Got a haircut, put on his fancy suit, and got invited to a wealthy man's house. So here he was in a certain city. And he did that same thing, took a nice shower, took a nice shave, took a nice haircut, and he was in the city of Lodz. And he asked around, who is the wealthiest Jew in town? I want to eat by the wealthiest man. I want to eat well. Who's the wealthiest guy? So they said the wealthiest Jew is Velvel. He's a banker. But Velvel, you don't want to go to his house. He says, why not? He says, he has the best food, but he never lets you eat. What do you mean? He says, every time he gives the food, he starts a conversation with you. And by the time you try to answer him, the waiters come and snatch away the food. And then the next course, and he asks you another question again. You don't get to eat. Don't go to his house. He has the best food, but you're never going to eat. And Yankel says, don't worry, I have a plan. So Yankel gets invited to Velvel's house. He comes Friday night. They sing Shalom Aleichem, Yeshil Hayel, they make Kiddush, they eat the halal, and out comes the fish. Mm-hmm. And comes the fish, and exactly as the people said, Velvel turns to his guest and says, I heard you're from Warsaw, right? In Warsaw, I have a cousin there. My cousin Shloimi, he's a famous tailor. You know him? So he says, yeah, I know him. How is he? And Yankel says, he's dead. And Velva was, what, dead? Dead? He runs out, he runs to his wife, my cousin died, can you believe it? And then, After a few minutes, he comes back down, he calms himself down, the fish is done, and Yankel got to eat his fish. Now comes out the soup. So he says to him, what about the other banker there from that city that I know very well, Beryl, how's Beryl doing? And Yankel says, Beryl's dead. What? Dead? He goes back to his wife in the kitchen. You can't believe it. My friend Beryl's dead also. No, and Yankel's there eating his soup. He ate his host soup. His host's not eating. Then they bring out the chicken and the kugel. And again, he says, "No, maybe you know my other friend. He's he works as a blacksmith. His name is give a name. Elchanan. Do you know him?" He says, "Sure, I know him. And how is he? Dead." Again, he's going crazy. Whatever. You know, they get to the desserts. Again, this host already figures it out. The host figures it out. The host says to him, "Listen, I got it. You're a clever fellow. And how could everyone be dead? I get you want to eat, but how could everyone be dead?" So Yankel says to him, "Listen, I don't know any of these guys, but I know one thing. When I eat, the world is dead to me. Right? I will die because you can eat, and you can have great food in front of you. But if you have pain, and you have worry, and you have stress, and you have terrorists running around the land, and you have crazy people around, can you really eat to satiation? Can you really eat with kaif? Can you really enjoy the bracha that you're getting?" It's not that simple. That's why the Torah tells us when Hashem gives a bracha, Hashem gives a bracha all the way. Hashem says, "I'm going to give you food, and I'm going to give you security, so you'll feel fine. You'll be able to eat in peace. You'll be able to eat with calmness. You'll enjoy the food. Not even going to rush, and you stuff it in and come out. You don't know what's going on. You can have the best food, but if you can't enjoy it the correct way, it's worthless." And this is another idea for us, because every time we see the way Hashem acts to us, we have to learn how to use that in our relationship to people. Because also a lot of times, we have people, let's say they come over for guests. We have guests at home. How do you treat your guests? Do you give them the full, good experience? Or you say, they can get away with this. We just, give them this. This is fine. For guests, this is good. This is good enough. Shalom. We see when Hashem treats people, He says, not only will I give you food, I'll give you security. We have to do the same thing. We have to give them inuhat nefesh, give them the best bedding, the best things, best room, the best stuff. This way, when they feel it good. Then they're able to enjoy the house that they're in. They're able to feel that they belong there. You have to give them attention. Because if you don't give them attention, they're going to feel like they're a burden to you. Like you don't want them to be here. They're just here. You have to make them feel really good about it. You have to thank them for coming to you. Even if they ask to come, thank them for coming to you. Because that's where Hashem deals with us. I remember once when I was a little kid, we went with my brother and an uncle. We went to, I believe it was New Square. In Square Hasidim live. And we went there. I think my uncle went there for business. And we were taking the bus back to Borough Park. And we were waiting on the bus stop. And all of a sudden, a couple of Hasidic Yidden came running towards us. And one Hasidic Jew came over, and he was begging us to come to his house. He said, please, come. I want to make Achros Zorchim. And we were like, the bus is coming in a half hour. He's like, oh, don't worry. Come with me. It's only 5 minutes to my house. We'll stay home for 20 minutes and come back. I'll walk you back. We came to his house. The guy was just throwing things at us. Take it, please. And him and his wife were thanking us for coming into his house. It was a random weekday. It wasn't even Shabbat. One more Maisa that happened to me when I was in camp or Shrago. It's a learning camp up in the mountains in Catskills. And it was Selichot time. And I wanted to find the Sephardic minyan in the mountains. We were in Ashkenaz camp. And I remember calling Rav Moshe Harari Raful. He was the son of the Rosh Yeshiva of Ateret Torah of Brooklyn. And we called him. We told him, so we want to come. He says to me, no, not that you want to come. We need you to come. We're not sure if we're going to have minyan, but if you and your friend comes, we'll have minyan. So I said, I don't have a way to get there. He says to me, Come and I'll pay you for it. I'll take care of the money. I'll take care of everything. We came, right? We come to the shul, in the Camp Morris, full, but 30, 40 Syrian guys all davening there. We walk inside, and the man, this Rosh Hashiva's son, a great rabbi in his own right, Moshe Rayaful, comes running towards us and says, "Oh, Shkoyach, thank you so much for coming. We need you. Come. He gives us a seat. He tells us, he gives us kavod. He gives us take out the Sipot Torah, this, that. Then he invites us to his house after Shaharit, to his bungalow in the summer. And he invites us, gives us breakfast. Gives us everything. He says, thank you. His wife says, thank you. Everyone's saying thank you to us for coming. And he gives us money for the way back. He pays 2 ways. We felt so bad that we took so much money from the guy. But here's the guy. He does the mitzvah totally. Not, it's okay. I'm already doing a hesed. I can do it halfway. This is the lesson that we have to take with this. So I would like to review the 3 lessons very quickly. Number 1, we saw the lesson of we have to feel our fellows' pain, but we have to strengthen them as well. And that can be in pain in finance or pain in lack of mitzvot. And our second lesson was that in order to be considered a Yirei Shemayim, you have to worry about your brothers and let them live. And that's a Yirei Shemayim. That's from the Tupuchei Chaim. And then for our third lesson, we saw how Hashem gives bracha. Hashem gives bracha completely. He gives us food to eat and security so that we can eat well. We can enjoy our food. And we learned the way Hashem blesses us, we have to use that midah in order to bless others and take care of others as well. So with this, I'd love to wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom.